Welcome back to $2 Garage, and today we're going to be talking about 10 affordable entry-level enthusiast cars in the year of 2024. To get things started, I understand these cars have a reputation, and hooligans tend to own them, but that does not go away from the platform itself. The 350Z, 370Z, or Infiniti G35. It's the VQ platform. They made a ton of these. And, well, they're just good cars. So, what you're looking at is a sometimes automatic in case of the G35, but a, again, good looking car. Manual, coupe, 2-door or 4-door. You could even get one in all-wheel drive if you, say, live in the snow. They look pretty good, too, so, okay, I'm not a fan of the diesel truck pipe, but that thing looks pretty clean, and, of course, it is a manual. As we can see, they're relatively affordable, going somewhere for $2,500 to $5,000 to $7,000, depending on how much work you want to put into it. Of course, this is something you have to be aware of. It's an entry-level enthusiast car. They tend to be poorly modified. You've seen G35s in the wild. And the truth is, there's a good chance, especially on the cheaper end of things, you're going to have to do some unclapping. You're going to have to do some maintenance. And that's just, you're on the low end. That's the trade-off of being on the low end. That being said, I don't think that diminishes from how good the platform is, and it's a 20-year-old car. It's going to need some maintenance anyway. The next car on the list is fairly simple, and this is the Mustang SN95 GT. These were the Mustang from 1994 till 2004. They're very 90s and bubbly and new edge design. And, again, they're pretty good. If you find an early one, they have the old 5.0 in them. But after that, they have the 4.6 modular 2-valve, which is an excellent motor that will go a very long time. They're not exactly a powerhouse. I think they make like 180, 200 horsepower. But it makes all the right V8 noises, and most importantly, you can get a manual, which is the important part. Being it is a 20-year-old Mustang that was mass-produced, pretty much any part is easy to find, unless it's something like a Terminator or something like that, even just a plain GT. Parts are stupid cheap, stupid accessible. If you do want to push power, you can, and they're just readily accessible. Plus, it is a modified Fox body, so of course, pretty much everything from a 1978 Fairmont until 2004 just bolts right up. So, very good platform. This car is a perfect example. 120,000 miles. Again, for a 20-year-old car, isn't much. $4,000. It's a GT. It's a stick. This is really clean for $4,000. And again, it has a little rust. It's a 20-year-old car. But honestly, that thing looks pretty good. Once again, as we see in the pricing, these are easy to come by, and you could get a GT with a V8 that makes all the right noises, and you could row your own gears for somewhere between $1,500 to $5,000. And you'll have an awesome, decent-looking vehicle that is fun to drive. Will be a bonus ad because I think they're of similar value. We can't forget the S197, which is pretty much as cheap. Again, this is all up to you in what styling you choose. I don't really mind either as a child of the 2000s. I think they look good. The next one is a little riskier than the other two, but pretty cheap. The 986 Boxster. Now, the first thing you're going to say is, oh, it's a complex German car. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Well, could happen. But, you know, it is a cheap Porsche, so you could always learn to fix it. Realistically, you can get these cars somewhere between $3,000 to $6,000 all day and get a decent running and driving example. You do have the IMS bearing, but with a lot of these vehicles at this point in time, the IMS bearing has already been done because it's a 20-year-old car. The issues have happened. So to show you what I mean, this one sold already, but this is a run and drive car. And yeah, it's not the cleanest, it needs some work, but it's a Porsche for $3,000 that runs and drives. It's a manual. The engine's in the back. And it's not 40 years old like, say, a 944. So, pretty good deal. And if you want to spend a little more money, for like $5,000 to $6,000, you can get a nice Boxster. And I understand there's some people that make fun of it because it's a baby Porsche and the headlights are ugly or whatever. But the thing is, this is a classic two-door roadster. It looks good. And I mean, I'd love to drive something like this. I actually want to get one of these on the channel at some point. Things you gotta look out for. Well, the IMS bearing and general wear items. It is Porsche, so be prepared to pay the Porsche tax. That being said, there's enough of these used and there's enough people breaking these things that you could probably save some money with used parts and enjoy one of these vehicles at a fairly low cost. Next up, if you're a little less risk-takey like me, I like my cars of the Germania variation. We have the Scion FRS. This is a much newer. It's Toyota, so it's a whole lot easier to get parts. And as we can see, they're all over the place. $5,000, $8,000, $4,000. Of course, some people argue the nuances of the difference between the BRZ and the FRS and the GT86 and look, they're all the same. It's all the same basic layout. So I'll just group them together. And realistically, you could get one for $5,000 to $8,000. It's rear-wheel drive, manual, fairly lightweight, fairly balanced, excellent vehicle to learn on, and generally fun to drive. I see nothing wrong with it. What you have to watch out for is, because it is a cheap entry-level enthusiast sports car that is somewhat popular and isn't a Mazda Miata, so it actually has a usable trunk, they tend to get a little riced out and a little ruined, and everyone and their mom's second cousin wide bodies them. But, generally, I'm not going to let that affect the vehicle. It's still fun to drive. Let's move on to our next one. Today we're starting with hot hatches. So we have a Mark 7 or 7.5 GTI or a Jetta GLI. The reason I group these two together is the only difference between the Jetta and the Golf is one is a sedan and one is a hatchback. From the front forward, it's basically the same car. They're on the same architecture, etc. Once again, this is a newer vehicle. It is from the 2010s. It is, if this would load, well kept, nice and stock, looks good. I love the plaid seats. If you don't like manual, you can get a DSG. It's a decent transmission. And of course, it is a hatchback, so it is an all-arounder. Now, let's say the Golf just isn't your style. The alternative I would propose is a Focus ST. Well, at this point, they're pretty affordable. You can easily get one for under 10 grand that runs and drives. It's going to be a little rough, but if it's your first enthusiast car, you're probably going to ruin it anyways. Next up, we have the Honda V6 Accord Coupe. Well, this one's a very easy sell, especially to parents, because it's a Honda Accord. I mean, that's pretty good. You get a 3.5 liter V6. You sometimes get a manual. They are quite hard to find. but you're getting about 300 horsepower, you're getting a good motor, and it looks pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't mind being in something like this. This one's a little bit on the pricey side, but that thing looks pretty good. Next up on our affordable entry-level enthusiast car is the Nissan Sentra SER. The Nissan Sentra is the entry-level Nissan. It has always been. And the SER is the fast one. These are torque steer machines, and people love to modify these things. As we can see, these are reliably in the $4,000 to $3,500 range for a running and driving car. Now, there are some issues you need to watch out for with these Sentra SERs. I believe the timing chain guides like to wear out on these motors and destroy themselves, so that is some preventative maintenance you may have to do. But if you're on the cheap side of the curve, you're kind of expecting that. The next one, which I'm also grouping in, is the Sentra's bigger brother and kind of a menace of the internet, including me. I love to make big Ultima Energy jokes. But the Nissan Altima SER. Yes, Nissan was a bit out of their minds in the early 2000s, but realistically, you can pick up these Altima SERs fairly cheap. It does have a front-wheel drive 3.5-liter V6. It makes good power, 300 horsepower. It is a nice, spacious, full-size sedan. Let's be honest, it looks pretty good, and this generation of Ultima is actually pretty well regarded. Next up is a early 2000s sleeper that is personally beloved, and that is the Buick Regal GS. This is the W body. It is GM's mid-size platform. It looks like a total grandma's car, right? It's got the 3800 supercharged engine, making 240 horsepower, and it is quite a bit of fun. It is front-wheel drive, and again, this is more of an automatic highway pull machine, but realistically, looking at Marketplace here, you can get a nice one for $4,500. Of course, it does have cousins like the Grand Prix GTP, which does look different and is around the same price, $2,500 to $5,000. Same motor, same mechanically the same, and it's going to be a similar setup. And again, it's a Buick. It's a GM 3800 V6. Even the supercharged ones are basically free. We do have to cover the soft spots or the weak spots. So there are the plastic coolant elbows. They like to leak. Other than that, these 3800s are pretty well bulletproof. Every once in a while you hear of a supercharged one blowing a head gasket, but even then the supercharged 3800 is real cheap and overall very good, reliable platform. Next up on our list is the 2011 to 2018 Taurus SHO. Now these cars are the full-size Taurus. They were used as the police cars. They have the twin-turbo V6, and they make somewhere in the neighborhood of 365 horsepower and 400 foot-pounds of torque factory. They look pretty good, and of course, they're all-wheel drive. As we can see, let's get some better pictures here. That would be nice. These are no light car. They weigh 4,300 pounds. It is a big boy, but it is a big, comfy, all-wheel drive highway pull machine, and if you do so want to spend the money and make it make more power, that is not at all hard. This is very comfortable and a good daily driver. Now we have to talk about the downsides of the Taurus SHO. That is the internal water pump. So they have an internal plastic water pump in the middle of the V on the motor. And that is why these 3.5s are so cheap. When that goes, it mixes coolant and oil, and then you get a magic milkshake and you need a brand new motor. Congratulations, you won the lottery. So that's why these things are so cheap. So you're realistically either going to have to do some maintenance or just drive it till the water pump goes, and who cares? Coming in at number 11, we have the car that's very close to a Honda, but not a Honda. The early 2000s SVT Contour. This is a Focus SVT Contour. These have a high revving 4-cylinder. Obviously, it's just a Ford Focus. But it's lightweight, it's manual, it's a high revving 4-cylinder, and it's a hatchback. If it had a Honda badge on it, it would be beloved. That being said, it doesn't have a Honda badge on it, but there is a small following. So you can, as we can see, realistically get these cars for somewhere between $2,500, $1,000, $3,000, $4,000. And the thing is, this is lightweight, it's fun to drive, it's manual, I believe it's manual only. They do rust, but honestly, this is a fun entry-level enthusiast car that's fun to drive for well under $10,000. Kicking off our last suggestion, and I can switch this up between either an E90, E92, or an E46, is an E46 BMW. Now, these are going to require a little more maintenance than, say, some of the Japanese counterparts. There's a good point. They may need sensors and hoses and little nickel and dime stuff. But what, at the end of the day, what you're getting is a sometimes manual, inline-6, rear-wheel drive, coupe 4-door, fun platform. Yeah, the motor doesn't sound the best compared to, say, the E36, but for the price, it's good. And everyone's going to say, but they're clapped. You can get one that may need a little work, but isn't necessarily totally destroyed. Now, you can get these cheap if you do find a stick. I don't know if this one is. I think it's an automatic. But if you do, these are relatively fun to drive. I mean, you can learn how to do back roads, and it's an entertaining, practical platform. And an honorable mention would be the Ford Panther platform. So this would be your Crown Victoria, your Lincoln Town Car. These cars are obviously not sports cars, but they are nice, comfortable, floaty barges, and there's nothing wrong with a good old land yacht. They have a 4.6 modular in them. These are pretty well bulletproof, and they're just overall nice cars, and it's still a rear-wheel drive V8. So, I don't know, just a considerable shout out. Well, that'll be the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed possible entry-level vehicles. And if you didn't, that's fine. Just leave a comment. It helps with the algorithm.